Today on Locked On Red Wings, was the road trip good enough? We look at the positives and the negative takeaways from the 5-game road swing.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Scotty, we want to take today's episode because we have 2 days between now and the next game. Rather, I guess that would be Wednesday as we're recording this, and then Thursday. I always got to remember that it's staggered a little bit.
There are Wednesday 2 games in between the games that are played by the Detroit Red Wings.
All right, 2 days in between. And this recording is the first of those 2 days for us. And we wanted to take a look back at the road trip because we had set expectations for this team going into the road trip and whether or not they met those expectations, as well as, what were the positive takeaways, what still needs to be worked on, who got hot, who cooled off, the whole, shebang. It's basically a game recap, but across 5 games. Scotty, before we can get to that, I got to let the people know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Scotty, the simple question here in segment 1 was, in your opinion, was this 5-game road swing, were the results good enough for you?
Yeah. It's not overwhelming. It's not like, oh my goodness, this was an A+ road trip. They crushed it. No, they left some to be desired, and they left a little bit on the table for sure. But in terms of you look back at this 5-game road stand and go, okay, was this passable, acceptable? Did we get what we wanted to results wise? I mean, 5-game West Coast road trip and they got over a 500 points percentage by a point, but they did. We'll take it. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The overall record on the season is still phenomenal. They are toward the top of the standings still, even with the loss to Vegas. There's a lot still going right for this team. It also wasn't some overwhelming, oh my goodness, that this is, I have a whole new outlook in a positive way necessarily on the team. It's just it was solid. They played well, and they didn't lose any ground over those 5 games. And yeah, now you get to come home and hopefully take some of that momentum with you. I think the biggest thing is just the fact that it's over and they didn't completely collapse. We've just become so accustomed to, and maybe this isn't fair because I'm just comparing it to previous Red Wings teams, and that's kind of a ridiculous exercise, but we're just so used to, oh, let's go out west for 5 games. Okay, well, we just completely blew the season. And for that to not only not be the case, but for them to actually look pretty good throughout, I think is worth something. And even in, again, the Vegas game that they lost, that was a competitive, back and forth game where they still were able to stick to their style. The only real kind of gross game was Anaheim, and they keep winning, man. They just put up 7 on Tuesday night and are an absolute wagon at the moment. So maybe that's not as whatever you want to say, inexcusable or soft of a loss as maybe we expected going into the year. So yeah, I'm perfectly okay and satisfied is the word with this road trip.
Well, and I think too, when you look at it through the lens of contrasting it to last year's California road trip, right, Scotty? I remember was it a blown lead, like a 3-goal blown lead against the Anaheim Ducks last season, as well as a loss to San Jose? It was at the end of that road trip that you and I got on here and said, okay, Lalonde needs to go. This isn't working. The team got out to a start where they were struggling, and we had come on here and been like, it's time. Now that road trip came a little later. I think it was in November rather than late October. So there were more games under their belt. And we felt like that was their last real hurrah. And then a month later, they did move on from Lalonde. This season, 3-2. And I stated my expectation was for them to at least go 500 points percentage-wise. So essentially, I was asking for a bare minimum of 2-2-1. They got me an extra point. They went 3-2, which is a 600 points percentage. That's not easy, especially on a long road trip in a condensed schedule because of the February Olympics, making it so teams have less off days. You look at the two games that they lost, and they're probably the two games you would expect the team to lose, at least in retrospect. You look at the Anaheim game that you just talked about. Yes, Anaheim is off to a torrid pace. They are playing incredible hockey right now. They're young, they're fun, everything's just clicking. But also, that was the second half of a back-to-back for Detroit, 3 time zones away. You know what I mean? This was it was as scheduled as a loss as you probably could have on the road trip. It was their third game in 4 days, I believe. It was a tall task to expect them to win that hockey game, and they lost in a pretty wide margin. They looked tired in that game. The Golden Knights game, that was probably the other game where you're like, this is, a pretty scheduled loss. You're playing one of the Cup contenders.
It's the last game of the road trip, yeah.
And the Red Wings played pretty well. Not good enough. There was still some stuff left to be desired in that game, but I came away from that game. We did a whole episode on it yesterday talking about how, given the circumstances, right, pretty pleased with the performance from the team. They just could not buy a goal in that hockey game because Vegas's defense was so stifling and the team could not finish, which has been an ongoing problem. But yeah, I think it's a successful road trip. I think any team in the NHL would love to say they took 3 of 5 on every 5-game road swing, especially when you're going, a couple time zones away at that. And the Red Wings in the games that they did win played pretty good hockey too. You look at that game against the Blues, they won 5-2 to start off the road trip, the second half of the home and home against the St. Louis. And I know the Red Wings had the edge in shot attempts in that game. The Blues pushed late, which of course was part of the reason why they slightly outshot the Red Wings. The game against LA, everything except for the last 2 minutes of that game was all Red Wings. They played great in that game. And then the San Jose game, the only reason it was 3-2 in that one is because, again, they could not finish. The 3 wins they had, they played really, really good. So, and the one of the 2 losses they had, I thought they played pretty good. So there is a lot to like from that road trip because remember going into the road trip too, we had only seen Detroit struggle on the road. In Toronto, Talbot stole you the win. In Buffalo and in New York against the Islanders in New York, both were just terrible games for the Red Wings. So the question began to blossom, are they bad on the road? And I think if they didn't completely snuff out those concerns, they at least, quelled them a little bit after a 3-2 road trip.
I think it's a great point too. Any concerns you have about the team's ability to show up and not only win, but play their style. That was before the road trip. I remember talking on here about, what our expectations were and whatever. And we talked about okay, this is where you really have to prove that your style can travel. And I know that kind of sounds ridiculous, but we had yet to see it. And so I think that at a minimum, it kind of puts that to rest. But there's a handful of things that are reinforced in a positive way and reinforced in a negative way just over these last 5 games. So, I mean, we can go to break now or we can jump right into it, whatever you want to do timing-wise. But I think that there's still a handful of stuff kind of on both sides of the aisle there that you feel good about and maybe you're concerned about leaving.
Sure thing. Let's go to a break first then, Scotty. I feel like sure thing and 100% on my new crutches. I've noticed that. I tend to lean on those now. Sure thing. Whatever you say, buddy. We'll do a quick break. And we'll come back and we'll talk about what went right on that road trip and then what left some things to be desired. Stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making the late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, there were a handful. Do you want to start with the positives? Or you want to start with the negatives?
I want to start with both, Brian.
Okay. Cheat. Always cheating.
The reason why is because one of the things that I think was very reinforced positively and negatively was something that in the Vegas game, the FanDuel Sports Network crew brought up a couple of times. They had a graphic for it. I know Daniela Bruce talked about it. And I'm not sure we've dove super deep into yet. We've talked about it off air before, but the Red Wings so far this season have been horrible in the first period and elite in the second period. And they, like I said, FanDuel Sports Network put out a graphic in the Vegas game that had goal differential just in each period throughout the season. And they were 29th or 28th in the NHL in the first period, and then one of the best in the NHL in the second period, and then I think it was 0 in the third. Excuse me. So it's one of those things where when you look at these 5 games, that's something that didn't really go anywhere. Like any concerns people have had going into this road trip about, them starting off slow, that's something that they struggled with in the past and so far this year had struggled with. They had a couple of really bad starts at home even before, even going out west. But they have rebounded really nicely and been really good in the second period. And so I think that that's why I say both. Like I love being a great second period team. I hate being a bad first period team. And I think that it's one of those things where in these 5 games, your opinion doesn't really change on that. Not that they necessarily got like their teeth kicked in and like we're out of a game after the first period at any point. But I think that was still rearing its ugly head in nearly each of these 5 games.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of games where they started on time. I thought that they started on time against LA. It's hard to keep them all straight in your head with all these games happening. Let me double check on that.
I couldn't even tell you. Sure.
Oh, yeah. So it was 0-0 after the first period. Then Laferriere scored a shorthanded goal to make it 1-0. And then the Wings woke up. Power play goal, DeBrincat Casper in the second to make it 2-1. But yeah, it definitely has been something that has been noticeable. And like you said, they brought it up on the broadcast.
Penalties early too. Like that was a big reason for it as well. They had like 3 games in a row where they had a penalty in the first minute of the game.
It takes them time to get going. And I'm not overly concerned about that, but at the same time, it is something to keep an eye on because you can get yourself in early holes that are tough to climb out of if you don't start on time.
Yeah.
So I thought yesterday's game, 2 days ago now, against the Vegas Golden Knights, I wouldn't say they started slow, but I don't think they really were playing their game either. It was kind of an okay start. But the second period was where they actually, like, as soon as Barbashev scored that goal, the Vegas Golden Knights, I thought dominated the second. So it definitely wasn't true in that game, but it has been something that has been noticeable across the, 12, 13 games prior to that.
Yeah. And well, again, like they've been incredible in the second. So like it's one of those things that I think you would, in a perfect world, like to see them iron out and get a little bit more, consistent across 3 periods. But I mean, at the same time, it clearly hasn't cost them a ton of games so far this season. So I think I don't even want to say like they're not starting on time. It's just I don't know. They've just had some weird starts to games that have put them, behind the 8 ball going forward. And obviously you don't want that to be the case over
you don't want to give
games.
the other team momentum because then you have to worry about taking it back.
Right.
I think that it's pretty easy to say Alex DeBrincat went right on this road trip. He found a scoring touch, obviously, in the game against St. Louis, the first game against St. Louis, where he hit 2 crossbars before scoring the game-tying goal and that incredible comeback, and then the floodgates kind of opened. Alex DeBrincat was phenomenal on this road stand. That's not a thing. Road swing. He had 7 points in 5 games and was riding a 5-game point streak, I believe, up until that Vegas where they obviously got shut out. He had 3 straight multi-point games before he had just an assist against the Sharks. So Alex DeBrincat finding his scoring touch is absolutely one of the positives, and he just has been ripping the puck like crazy from all over the ice.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that you hope that you hope that water finds its level. You hope that he can continue doing that, and eventually it will not be, hey, he had 8 shots and no goals. Like, eventually the tide will turn and kind of the floodgates will open. We've talked about that already this season. And so
it is already
I
turning,
thought he
though.
played a great road trip. I mean, regardless of the amount of times he found the back of the net, I thought he was really effective. So I mean, a lot of his value obviously comes from scoring when it comes to what this roster expects from him. So hopefully that's the case.
I think the same can be said about Lucas Raymond, too, who came back after missing 2 games and then clearly wasn't 100%. I think he is getting really close to being back to 100%. And you can see it with how he engages in board battles. He doesn't shy away nearly as much from contact. You saw it in that great goal he had against the San Jose Sharks, where he kind of embraced contact to make a move around the defender before releasing an absolute rifle of a shot off the bar and down. He had 6 points in the 5-game road trip. So those two, I mean, they're the most obvious players for what went right for the Red Wings, because Dylan Larkin eventually was going to cool off, and he did cool off to some extent. Larkin, I believe, still was a point per game on the road trip. He just wasn't scoring goals at the torrid pace that he was previously, and thankfully DeBrincat and Raymond were able to pick up the slack where he left off.
Yeah, for sure. And that was obviously a little bit of a concern when the injury happened, like you mentioned, and I think those concerns have fleeted. If you're looking for something to take out of his game over the last 5 games, it is probably that. It is probably the fact that he certainly there seems to be no lingering effects to that injury, which is great news.
And then I think finally, as far as players go, what went right for Detroit was Moritz Seider. He was already, I mean, we've spoken about Seider so much, and you could even expand that and say Seider and Edvinsson being paired back up together. But Seider individually has been a monster defensively, and now he's started to get the points along with it, as he had 4 points on the 5-game road trip. And points for me with Seider are a cherry on top. If he can acquire points and he finishes between 40 and 50 points every single year, if he can reach 50, that'd be a huge win. But if he's between 40 and 50 points every single year while being this incredible defender, the Red Wings are in good hands. His numbers, I don't know if you've seen, but Dom Luszczyszyn of The Athletic put a Risers and Fallers article out. And Moritz Seider is defensively through, 14, 15 games, having his best season ever with the advanced analytics and the eye test in the defensive zone. He has been absolutely just unstoppable in the defensive zone. It feels like he's the one doing the stopping,
right?
Though.
He's
so I feel like there's a better
others.
The ultimate stopper,
right? Yeah, there you go. He's been plugging really well. No, it's man. Like he's, and I think that's something that we've already kind of alluded to throughout the season, and it's great that the numbers kind of back that up. I think just in terms of ending on a high note, like it's nice to see Gibson rebound. Didn't have a very good outing against Anaheim, former team. He was stellar against Vegas. Hopefully you get that version of him going forward. That'll help. Obviously, you talk Seider, goal prevention, Gibson in that breath as well, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a lot of positives to take out of everything. And there's certainly more positives than negatives, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to find exactly the expected goal share for Moritz Seider himself. But sometimes it can be a pain in the butt. Oh, here we go.
I say we just guess it. 4.
Well, I had pulled up. Oh, he's 17th in the league with qualified minutes of 50 or more in expected goal share. Whew,
there you go.
So
Top
good.
20 in the NHL.
And that's with the incredible defensive deployments that he had. Like, if I crank
Right.
this up to 200 minutes, let's see. Sorry, this is very off the cuff. I apologize. I've ruined the flow.
You should apologize for sure, but it's fine.
He's 12th in the NHL amongst defensemen with at least 2, and that's all situations. Let's go 5-on-5. Let's get deeper.
You're seeing how Brian's brain works real time here, actually.
The trick is it doesn't.
It doesn't work?
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
I
at
think we
5-on-5, he is 18th in the NHL amongst defensemen with at least 200 minutes in expected goals percentage at 56%, which is incredible.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate to have Moritz Seider on this hockey team. That's for dang sure.
Big
Scotty, let's head to a break. When we return, we'll talk about what was left to be desired. Stay tuned for segment 3 of Lockdown Red Wings. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything, and you've probably heard them all before. It's just stress, I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiette makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. With Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNHL so they know we sent you. Rougiette. Stop making excuses and start making moves. All right, Scotty. So I did lie. I had one more thing that went right, and that's just the penalty kill. We've talked about it a lot, so we don't have to labor upon it. But it was 0 for 2, and then against LA, it went 0 for 2. It went for 2 for 2, and then 4 for 4, so 6 for 6, and then 4 for 5. So did they allow one? They allowed one power play goal on a 5-game road trip. 1. And it was against that Ducks game, which was a ref show. So, yeah, the Red Wings penalty kill is still really, really good.
Absolutely. And it's a huge deal, especially compared to last season, for sure.
Right. All right, Scotty, what was left to be desired? What were things that we were a little underwhelmed about coming away from this?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the penalty kill. I think the power play is probably in that conversation. Not that it was terrible, but just like you are feeling the lack of Patrick Kane on your power play. And the sooner that he gets back, the better in that regard. And we've seen that this can legitimately be one of the best power plays in all of hockey when he is a part of that unit. And yeah, man, I think the special teams has the potential to have a really, really special season once he gets back and if the penalty kill continues doing what it's doing. So I think that's probably one thing that was a concern when Kane went out and continued to be a concern throughout the road trip.
Yeah, and that's one of those reasons why you really, really need him, is because that power play needs that playmaker. They have had really good opportunities. It's not like they're not moving the puck well. And,
Sure.
recency bias is a thing, and that Vegas game was a struggle, but part of that is just how good Vegas is defensively. And that's where Kane makes the difference. But in a lot of the other games that the Red Wings had, the power play had a lot of puck movement, but just really struggled to score goals. In the road trip, they scored, 4 power play goals total on the road trip, despite the fact that they had 16 opportunities. So they went 25% on the road trip, which is not terrible.
No.
It's not terrible, but it could have been better, especially in games where you really needed the extra finishing.
They also had 7 of those were against the Ducks alone. So
the opportunities, power play opportunities.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just something that, again, the longer it goes on, the more we will notice it, I'm sure. But hopefully.
Man, but the penalty kill going 13 for 14 is awesome, though.
Yeah, that's sweet.
All right. As far as players go, Emmett Finney really cooled off. He was kind of scoring at a crazy rate. Like, he was shooting like 25%, which is just not going to be maintainable. He did not, I don't think he got a single point this entire road trip, at least the final 4 games of it. Yeah. But my concern level for Finney is very low, because I thought in those games he still played really well. He still did the right things. He just was not finishing. I think the place he struggled the most was in Patrick Kane's spot on that flank on the power play. But that's because he's replacing Patrick Kane, who is one of the, if not the most prolific playmakers in NHL history. So it was a lot more glaring when that's who you're replacing. But at 5-on-5, we talked about the San Jose game, right? He had 5 shot attempts. All 5 were scoring chances according to the data. So he's great. He's fine. But these kind of ebbs and flows with his scoring are going to happen just because of how young he is, 20 years old. But he definitely cooled off here on the road trip.
Yeah, and I ultimately with him, it's just like he is still in the right places. He's still going and trying to get pucks in corners. He's still kind of wreaking havoc in front of the net. He had a goal scoring opportunity right in front of the net. Against Vegas. Like he is still doing what you want to do, and he is never going to be the point producer on a line with Larkin and Raymond anyway. So
right.
I don't really care about the point production, as maybe as overly dramatic as that sounds, especially for a guy that's on the top line. But that's just in my eyes, not what he's out there to do compared to the other guys. If he's doing kind of the dirty work on that line with those 2 guys, then his points will come naturally. He just has to flow with the 2 best point producers on the team.
Yes, and I think in a similar vein, we should talk a little bit about Axel Sandin-Pellikka. I feel like ASP has been kind of struggling in the NHL of late. And we saw that with the fact that pairs got shaken up. Pairs did not get changed because Sherratt wasn't playing well with Seider. Sherratt was playing incredible with Seider, in fact. But the Edvinsson and ASP pair were struggling. And part of that was Edvinsson, but a big part of that was ASP was struggling in the minutes that he got. They switched the pairs up. Sherratt was then with ASP. And then I think we saw it was the San Jose game where they were essentially the third pair in that hockey game. ASP had a really bad turnover as well behind the net in the defensive zone against the Knights that almost led to a goal against. I've noticed, and the hockey stat cards and all and I test and the analytics say that he is struggling, and he's also not producing enough offensively to kind of cover up for those defensive mistakes. He is 3rd worst on the team in shot attempt share on the Detroit Red Wings, while also being straight up, also 3rd worst in shot attempts when he's on the ice. So the team faces the 3rd most when he's out there. Part of that is deployments, right? You put a young rookie in really tough deployments to start the season. getting shelled kind of happens when that happens. But I'm not saying this to slander ASP. I really, really like ASP. I think he's going to be a great player in the NHL. What I'm trying to say is that he just had a really rough road trip, and that I would not be too entirely shocked if he does get some time in Grand Rapids, because I'm not seeing enough out of him personally to think that he's ready. He's kind of getting crushed most games he's playing metrically.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see how they handle it. I'm not sure there's a significantly better upgrade there, but at the same
And that's the big question.
And like, I also want him to get acclimated to the NHL. There's overdoing it too, right? You don't want to like kill confidence and teach bad habits either. But I don't know. I'm not too terribly worried about it. They'll continue shuffling stuff around and give him different looks and see if he can take advantage of those. But like I think he'll be fine. He's 3 weeks into his NHL career. Like I think it'll probably work out.
Yeah, I'm not worried about ASP. It's just
no, I know
he's struggling, and it needs to be noted that he is struggling.
Yeah, not incorrect to say for sure. That's pretty much it. The only other thing I guess I could throw in there is just depth scoring, but that feels like a bigger conversation to unpack than just like, oh, depth scoring and then move on. Like that's like a whole bottom six conversation we could have.
I have that was the last thing I had on my list. We will do it tomorrow.
That's 2 days in a row with like a tease on the next day's episode. We're kind of crushing.
Yeah, that was the last thing on my docket. Was just I wrote down bottom six, and honestly, 3 of the bottom 6 that come to mind are Rasmussen, Comfer, and Kopp. Berggren, Soderblom, JVR. Like, something has to be done about those 2 bottom 6 lines, and part of it will fix itself when you get Mason Appleton back in the bottom 6. But they're slow and they produce no offense, both lines. So we'll talk a little bit about what you could maybe do with that bottom 6 on tomorrow's episode, because it's been a problem with how ineffective they've been offensively. So, Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.